that you are the distinguished professor of Italian American Studies and English.
Well, because of the work that you guys did, that position, was there from the very beginning at Staten Island when our friend had it.
Yeah.
And then they lost it for a while, and then Phil Canestraro got it through the Calandra Institute, and then I'm the next one, and what we've tried to do is take all the work that you've done and build on it, Sal, and we have workshops in Italy, we have all kinds of different things we're doing, but the one thing we can't do, and we're working our butts off to do this, I want to do this as my legacy, is we have not been able to create a PhD certificate in Italian American Studies. And it doesn't mean I want a PhD program in Italian American Studies. We just want to be able to work with people in our institution and draw them there so that we can replace ourselves. Because all of us went on and we helped create these chairs in Italian American Studies that are there, and those chairs will be there forever. But who's going to replace those people? And to me, this is the main key. To replace ourselves. I mean, because of the nurturing of Sal and you and a lot of the other people, I came into being as a scholar of Italian American Studies. And, I have created over the course of my career, 5 or 6 PhD students now who all have jobs, who in some way, shape or form possibly could take it over at some point, but we want to continue that tradition. And, we have gotten, we've had to do it all. I mean, we've had to not only do the scholarship, the teaching, and the program building, but we've had to raise the money. We've had to do the finances. It's an endless job, and so I'm going to blame it all on you two guys for getting me involved.
Well, it does show how a movement creates credibility, and then it's mirrored back, and we gain the prestigious professorships, but there's still a lot more to do.
Right.
Let's go to the group on Zoom. Anybody else have a comment? Peter Belmonte.
Yes, I wanted to thank Sal, and also have a question. But I met Sal many years ago, and he allowed me as a very neophyte writer to contribute an article in his encyclopedia, and I was very happy to do that. Showed everybody as soon as I got it, my name in there. But also, I met many years ago Aldo Icardi, who was an officer in the OSS, and he parachuted into Italy.
Yeah.
And he later got in a lot of trouble. He was accused of killing the commanding officer and embezzling, I don't know how much in gold. And he, of course, when I spoke with him and in his book claimed innocence, but then I spoke with some other men there, and they kind of looked at me like, well, if you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you. But I wonder if you know anything about that. I never did find out anything more than that.
I did come across that, of course, and I spent time in my book dealing with that. Yeah, it was an unfortunate affair. It was a scandal. A substantial amount of money was involved, and the military used this money to help people who were helping the Americans, help them to support themselves. And then at some point, there was the money disappeared. An officer, an army officer, was killed, and Icardi was the one who was accused of that. Trials were held, and I think he was defended by a prominent lawyer. I'm just trying to think of the name, but he was able to be acquitted, And but as Professor Belmonte says, he was acquitted, but there was always that tone of suspicion. And speaking about Professor Belmonte, you wrote a history of the Italian Americans in World War II, which I think is one of the few works out in that field and in that topic. So I want to encourage you to do more.
He's got World War I too covered in the Calabrese as well. We heard from him a couple of weeks ago. Anybody else have a question, comment? Carla, are you out there?
Hi,
Maybe-
yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. La Gumina. I have to, first of all, I mean, I'm so thankful for all the hard work that went into the establishment of AHA and you and Dominic and later Professor Garda-Fay. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today. If you hadn't been the people that, you know, were pioneers and set the whole journey forward. But I have a comment and a question too. Comment, first of all, I remember reading WAP. It's one of the first books when I started doing research on the Italian American history. And that was the first time I read about the lynchings in New Orleans.
Mm.
And that was a long time ago when I read that back in the 90s. And that has been so much in the news lately with all the controversy surrounding Columbus and how that incident was related to Professor Harris, President Harrison's declaration of the first Columbus Day. So as I've been asked to answer questions about that, I think back to reading that first book, WAP, where that incident was covered, and you had all the primary sources from the newspapers in there with how it was covered and whatnot. So I just want to thank you for that. It's been very much on my mind lately. And yeah, and the second one is a question. You were talking about the OSS and the Italians that were trained to be in that. I was wondering if you happen to have any knowledge of the writer Joseph Napoli, who wrote just that one memoir about his upbringing he was adopted by a Sicilian family in Ohio, and he went on and served in World War II, and he was in North Africa and Europe and spent a lot of time in Italy. He doesn't say it specifically, but I was just wondering what, he had language skills, you know, he could speak the Italian, he could speak the English, and he went in and actually, you know, visited the places where his adoptive family was from. But would he have been part of that group? He doesn't mention it, but he was, you know, just given his background, being well educated, he had a college degree, and he, you know, did service in those areas. It's just curious if you happen to know anything.
I'm trying to remember if his name came up. I can't say that I really came across his name, but he could have been very well been involved, especially since he had language advantages that were very useful.
There are OSS lists from that period.
Oh,
And
really?
I have found Scariano and Clemente on those lists. I can't remember how I got to it. It's somewhere on the internet.
Oh, okay.
So
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it's just something I've always wondered about, because when I read his memoir and when he talks about what type of service he did, and he went on afterwards and became, he was involved in denazification programs and also the prosecution of escaped Nazis and things like that. So I don't know, it seems to me that he would be the type of person they would have recruited for that type of work. That's all, so.
He might have been, as Dominic said, there are references, a list of members of the OSS that you can follow up on.
Yeah, Dominic, send me that, because I am curious, so.
I have to try to dig it out.
Okay,
There-
thank
there-
you very much. Thank you again.
Welcome.
Of course, it was a secret organization, so the list might not be reliable.
Well, that's
And-
what I was thinking. He wrote the memoir in the 80s, so that maybe at that time it was still classified and he couldn't have said anything.
There's
Yeah.
another source that I got from Tony Scariano. I think it was 1990 or 1992, or maybe it was 1995 for celebrating the end of World War II. 50 years. Um, there was a conference in Venice of the OSS Italians and the Partigiani. And there was a book of proceedings from it. And also Tony took some video of it that we have at the Casa Italia.
Oh, that's great. I want to just make another little point about the OSS people. You know, they were all sworn to secrecy, and they tried to maintain this as a lifetime promise that they would not reveal. And so it's interesting to note that some of these people whose background was in the OSS were in their 90s when they finally told their families about it. So they went decades without divulging anything about this, even to their own families. They were.
And it's such a great story to keep that. It's just like the La Storia Segreta, the story of the enemy aliens and Italians as enemy aliens. They didn't want to tell that story of persecution. Okay, anybody else want to pop in here with a comment or question? Who's out there?
This is Mike Herring. And boy, I'll tell you, I hope that I'm as articulate as, well, I'm not as articulate as Mr. La Gumina today. And at 93 to be so articulate, it's just amazing.
God bless you.
Yes. And so my question was, you said your mother was designated an enemy alien. What impact did being designated an enemy alien have?
When the United States entered World War II, people who were living in this country but not yet citizens were legally aliens. But now that Italy was fighting against the United States, it became enemy aliens. It was a disturbing experience because it meant that she had to be fingerprinted. She could not work in certain activities. We had to get rid of the shortwave radio. I personally took the shortwave radio we had in the house to a radio shop a couple of blocks away to disconnect the shortwave aspect. And so there were various restrictions. Worst of all, though, was the stigma attached to the idea of any enemy. Have to remember during the Second World War, and we haven't had that kind of a fervor since, there was a great deal of patriotism, far more than any other war since then. And so, as growing up as children, we were all gung-ho Americans. And now to be called enemy aliens, that was very disturbing. And I'll remember that till I die.
Did you have to turn in your flashlight too?
I don't know. I don't remember in my case, but I know they could not travel beyond 50 miles. They couldn't work in war plans. They could not do a lot of things. But the irony of the thing is that in our household was my mother, who was the enemy alien, but my brother, my sister, and I were all born in this country. We're natural born citizens. But we were affected by all of the steps that were taken.
So it wasn't just the particular
No,
arrested as enemy aliens, it was their relatives.
the shortwave radio, which we used to listen to, that had to be disconnected. And so it affected what we as citizens were able to do or not to do. Sure, it affects a lot more than that. As I say, it was an experience that I look back on with a great deal of trouble.
Okay, we have any other questions or comments? Alexandra, are you out there? You have a comment, a question, or Lucho? Oh, Alessandra.
I just very, thank you, Professor La Gumina.
You're welcome.
We met at several YAZA, well, it was YAZA at that time, conferences, Hofstra,
Oh, okay.
and
Yes,
yes, Calandra.
yes.
It's such a joy to see you, and you're looking so well.
Thank you. Thank you.
My father was an Italian doctor and came here in 1950, already, a doctor. And he lived, we lived in Nassau County. We were part of the Long Island Italians that you write about.
Right.
And my father was very involved in Italian doctors born abroad. It was an organization just for them.
Ah,
Italian doctors born abroad who were living in New York City.
uh-huh.
I was looking for that mention in your book. I don't think it was there, but I do have your book on Long Island Italians because
Well, I would appreciate if you can send me something, an email on the topic you're suggesting.
sure, I'll mention, yes, I still have like stationery about the organization.
Oh,
They still exist.
What was their biggest issue? What was the issue that they were fighting? Accreditation or?
No, they were just, it was a social organization. They were very clubby, they would get together. I don't think they had any cause except maybe to help other Italian doctors,
The network, yeah.
network, assimilate, job placement, perhaps,
Yeah, there were many organizations in Chicago. The teachers had a group, and the lawyers had a group, the Justinians and the executives of transportation, who weren't quite executives really, but did work together and get to know each other and create networks to move ahead in the world.
yes.
So where are you living now, Alexandra?
I'm near where I work at Queens College. I live in Flushing, Queens.
oh, great.
Piccolo Mondo.
Piccolo Mondo.
Dominic,
Yeah,
Dominic,
yes.
before we go, since we have the screen now, I wanted to put up the cover of the WAP magazine. This was the first cover. And you can see, this was in the 1970s, early 1970s. The cover is obviously reminiscent of a gangster.
Yeah.
Here's the way the man is dressed and so on. And I didn't like the cover, and I told the publisher that I was not taking. And I was told that the writer of the book is responsible for the contents, but the cover and the merchandising is up to the company. What they allowed me to do was to register a disclaimer, which I have in the beginning of the book, that indicates that this was chosen against my wishes. So now in the reproduction of this book, it doesn't have this cover, but this was the cover that
It has two dunce heads in the Canadian version.
yeah, that doesn't have that cover on that version. Well, I just thought since it was mentioned,
Okay.
that mention that.
Any other questions, comments from anyone? Indicate or wave your hands, or we'll look at you if you're not on screen. I can't see you waving. Let's see. Okay, well, Sal, you want to take 25 words or less, sum up your take on the progress of Italian American studies and the future and the past, all those details?
Very quickly, yes. Well, I'm proud of the role that we were able to play in recording the history, the experiences of Italian Americans over the years. When we first started the association, there wasn't much in the field. I mentioned that before. But look at what has been produced, just the number of books, serious books, dealing with aspects of the Italian American experience. To be part of that was something that I'm very happy to have been part of that. It provided growth for me, but it also enabled me to uncover and contribute to the field. So I think that I would come away with that feeling of making a contribution where it counted in the field of Italian American studies. And happy to see that it just seems to be growing and blossoming. More and more people are involved in it, and I think that's great. We're dealing here not just with Italians, incidentally, we're dealing with part of America. We talk about African Americans or this Americans or that, they're basically also Americans. And we know not only about the ethnic background, but we know more about this country. And so I think this is what I'm excited about. So keep up the good work, you people in Chicago, especially you, Dominic, you're doing terrific. And good to see you there, Fred.
Thank you. Well, I think I speak for all of us in thanking you for the inspiring information, and good luck, good health, and keep on keeping on. Ciao.
Bless you all.
Take care, Sal.
Thank
Thank you.
you. It's great
Bye.
seeing you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Giuseppe, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Quale parte dell'Italia? Sì. Quale parte?
Io?
Sì.
Io sono in Italia.
Sì, quale parte?
Ah, Calabria, Cosenza,
Calabria.
Università della Calabria.
Sì. I miei genitori erano siciliani.
Ah, siciliane.
Sì.
Mio padre era American citizen.
Ah, sì. Ah.
Sì, 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 sì.
So you're half American.
Half American. Okay, was an excellent session. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so long, Sal, and thank you very much for a nice presentation. Good stories, and we had good participation.
Right. All right. Good luck, and thank you for inviting me.
Okay, ciao, ciao.
Yes, sir.